Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. Now, after 1,200 podcast interviews with tech leaders and CEOs, there was a time where almost every day I spoke to a different blockchain or crypto company. And I think I've spoken to around 100 people in this space over the last 5 years. But then, of course, it went a little bit quiet. Crypto winter arrived. But I want to change all that. And having launched its mainnet in 2018, Ontology enables mainstream blockchain adoption by providing enterprises that want to dip their toes into distributed ledger technology waters with an ecosystem that supports choice. So, with a primary focus on delivering a robust, speedy, easy-to-use platform, Ontology affords businesses the flexibility to actually design a blockchain that best suits their needs. And it's all powered by the Ontology Coin, ONT. And the distributed collaboration platform allows businesses to enjoy the benefits of smart contracts and tokenization, but while retaining control of their sensitive data. So we've got a lot to talk about today, a lot to cover. And one of the things I always try and do on this podcast is take people from, yes, the tech and blockchain community, but also business leaders and get everyone on the same page and learn how we can start adopting this technology. So let's get Eric, ecosystem lead of Ontology's Americas operations, onto the podcast now, and we'll explore all this and much more. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Eric. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Hey, thank you for having me, Neil. So my name is Eric, and I'm the America's ecosystem lead for Ontology Network. I've been working on Ontology for almost exactly a year now. I think actually a little over a year. And I got involved last year when I was coming out of my previous work, which was working on ICO token reviews. So I was doing technical due diligence for a VC firm that I was working at. Before that, I was still a student. I was an undergraduate at MIT, where is actually how I got started in the Bitcoin space and the crypto space was in 2014 when I was a sophomore, and every MIT student was airdropped $100 worth of Bitcoin. And Bitcoin was worth $200 at the time. So every MIT student got half a Bitcoin. So it was quite the way to like throw everyone into the space. So the experiment was actually, it was run by these two students that would start the MIT Bitcoin Club. And, with the airdrop was like, okay, you got this airdrop, come join the club and figure out what this whole Bitcoin thing is. So I got more involved in Bitcoin that way. And then eventually I became president of the MIT Bitcoin Club. Got to meet a lot of people that way by just bringing in guest speakers, getting to travel to blockchain conferences. I got involved with an organization called the Blockchain Education Network, which is a network of blockchain clubs at different universities. After graduating, I eventually became president of that network, which is something that I still do now on the side. And since joining Ontology, I've been focusing mainly on business development and community growth, especially in the US and also in Latin America. So helping grow our project both from the tech community side and also the partnership, the enterprise partnership side.
I wonder how many of those MIT students still have that half a Bitcoin. What do you think?
Yeah, not a lot, actually. I mean, most people cashed out immediately because it was like, hey, free $100.
Yeah.
It was interesting because I think it was like the results, it was framed under a study. It was wrapped in a study. So they did try to like capture and see like how many people cashed out versus what people decided to do with it. The results were that there was actually very low demand because it's not enough to just airdrop and just provide a supply, but what's the demand behind it? And they try to do some stuff where they partnered with a couple of restaurants in the Boston area that would accept Bitcoin as a promotional for the airdrop. And some people used it and they utilized it, but not too many students did. And then after a while, those restaurants stopped accepting the Bitcoin because no one was showing up and you spend the Bitcoin there. So I think it just shows that if you're going to do an airdrop, or even just like in general, as we try to build out blockchain infrastructure, it's not enough to just think about, what are the making it easier for people to get access to crypto or get access to Bitcoin, but also where are the places where you're going to actually be able to spend your Bitcoin or spend your crypto, and where you're going to actually be able to use it, building out the demand side.
And as for Ontology, my understanding is it's this high-performance public blockchain and distributed collaboration platform. But we will have people listening both in and outside of that community. So could you help bring everyone up to speed and tell me a little bit more about exactly what it is and the kind of problems you're solving, and ultimately what makes Ontology unique from all those other solutions out there?
Yeah, for sure. So, we're a public blockchain. We're a smart contract platform. The key with Ontology is that we're fast, and we're enterprise ready and enterprise grade. So you look at these enterprises, you look at a lot of traditional companies, when they want to expand onto blockchain, or they want to do something, experiment something on a blockchain, they need something that works fast, and they need something that works right away. And also they need something that can be tailored to what their particular needs are. It's difficult to convince a company to just all of a sudden just throw all of their private information onto the Bitcoin blockchain, right? So it's like there could be like risks of exposing data. Also, Bitcoin can only handle 7 transactions per second. Ethereum can handle 15 transactions per second. So there's like these needs for speed, which is why a lot of companies turn to private blockchains, because private blockchains kind of offer that. But I think the issues with private blockchains is that you create a lot of mini closed systems, because every company or every consortium of companies runs their own private network of a blockchain, which isn't really that much different than what we have now, where everyone kind of maintains their own databases. So you want to have everyone be able to still work on a shared network while also being able to be fast and be scalable, which is what we provide. So we have this public chain that runs really fast, and in itself can confirm many over thousands of transactions per second. And we also work with enterprises specifically to either launch a side chain for them, which acts as a private chain but can still communicate with the main chain, so that you have that interoperability between these different networks. And we also provide an identity solution called ONT ID, which is very helpful for companies that are looking to, or they operate in industries like the medical industry or energy industry, anything that involves blockchain for something that has to do with identity, which is a lot of the use cases of what blockchain can be revolutionary in, right? Like medical, if you're doing medical records, if you're doing in legal, like signing law documents or patents or copyrights, in real estate, digital assets, anything that involves needing to peg an identity to an object, to a person, that's something that we specialize in, because we've built out that solution, and we can go and we can provide that to companies.
And having launched your mainnet, I think it was in June 2018, Ontology then enabled mainstream blockchain adoption by actually providing enterprises dipping their toes into the waters of distributed ledger technology with an ecosystem that supports choice. But can you just expand on Ontology's story so far?
Yeah, I mean, when we started, or when our mainnet launched, we launched in the bear market. So we didn't have like the hype or any of the moon, like to the moon memes, like while we were forged in a bear market, we went up while the market was crashing down, right? So it's really like you come in and you mean business. You come in, we made partnerships, we tested out use cases, we deployed pilots, we worked with a couple of hospitals to launch identity certificates for maintaining medical records. We work with a couple of supply chain companies and testing out chemical manufacturing supply chain, like keeping track of that. So we've like always focused on our use cases, and we've always focused on enterprise level use cases, and I think as the space went on, we've started to get into like what kind of everyone else is focusing on. So like we have some decentralized exchanges, we have non-fungible tokens, we have dApps that run on the Ontology network, and anyone can come and launch any of those things on the Ontology network, right? We have a smart contract platform, we have a virtual machine, so you can pretty much build anything that you can build on any smart contract platform. But our focus has always been on making these enterprise partnerships and going to traditional companies and helping them, add functionality or expand their business with a blockchain.
And how are you tackling that problem of adoption? Because I would imagine that making the Ontology platform the platform of choice for businesses and enterprises all around the world, I would imagine that is your biggest challenge.
Yeah, it's definitely a big challenge. A lot of times what we have to do is we have to convince, when we approach traditional companies, right? First, you have to convince them why a blockchain. Before you even get to like why Ontology, you have to convince them, why should they use a blockchain? And then you can convince them like, well, okay, now you know that you need to use a blockchain. Why should you use our blockchain? But it kind of works out pretty well hand in hand, because the reasons why you need to use blockchain kind of fall in line with like why you would want to rely on the Ontology blockchain, right? Like, why would a company want to use blockchain in their solution? Is like if they're trying to become interoperable with other data sets provided by other providers, right, like by third parties. So in a supply chain, it's very useful, because in a supply chain, you have a consortium of companies that are all trying to communicate with each other. And it's very hard to kind of accurately maintain a ledger across all of these different stakeholders. There's fraud, there's stuff gets lost, right? Like records disappear, they get stolen, like there's hacking attempts when you have like these big honeypots of data moving between each individual stakeholder. So there's like all these reasons why switching to a blockchain would be very, very important for them. So it's not that difficult for us to convince them. It's when we like go and pitch them. A lot of times we find that companies are on board with the idea of blockchain, and they've heard about it by now. I think the market today is very, very different than if you were going to try to pitch companies back in like 2015, 2016, when they didn't know the word blockchain. They just knew Bitcoin. Now people know the word blockchain, and I think they're more open to it. And it's more so about exploring a solution with them that actually works and actually is a value add, than it is having to convince them why blockchain in the first place.
And before you came on here today, I was also reading how your bespoke technology is widely considered to be an industry game changer for developers, enterprises, and end users. But for anyone that's not seen any of that information, could you just expand on that as well, just to hammer home that point?
Yeah, so we have a lot of different tools, right? And the different tools kind of work together to create a custom solution depending on what the enterprise would need. So like I mentioned, we have the generic smart contract platform. So any kind of smart contract that someone would want. So that opens up all the possibilities to DeFi, all the possibilities to non-fungible tokens, because DeFi and all the fungible tokens too, right? So the fungible tokens, which are just like what you think of like the ICO tokens or the ERC20 tokens, you could make like 10,000 of X token or Y token, right? Give it a name and you make a use case for it, like a utility token. You could also launch security tokens on it. So that would be securities that are backed, or that would be securities that are represented on chain, following the proper jurisdictions in whatever jurisdiction you're under. Non-fungible tokens, you make unique tokens. So these are all things that you can do on Ontology just right off the bat because of the smart contract platform. Then on top of that, we have a identity solution, which enables access to all of these different, identity focused use cases. Like if you need to do supply chain, or if you need to do record keeping, or if you need to do certifications or academic credentials, we have that tool set that is very easy, very plug and play. So anyone who has a use case like that they want to do, whether it's an enterprise or like an individual hacker, they can easily plug into our ecosystem. We have a data exchange framework, which we call DDXF. So that's now that you have like this identity, now that you have like these data pieces, you can exchange them with each other. So, if you're doing advertisements, you can exchange those advertisements. You can send those advertisements to people. If you're doing like an incentivized content delivery network where you're paying for being able to view content, that's stuff that's all handleable. You can handle all that on the blockchain level. So yeah, we create these tools, we offer these tools, we work with, and we rely on a lot of partners too. So for example, we work with Chainlink for decentralized oracles, and that's going to help with any use case that relies on the need for oracles, which would be like decentralized exchanges that they're looking for price feeds, or, even like weather tracking or things that kind of touch upon the real world. we're building out a framework for expanding access to Filecoin, so we can plug into decentralized storage solutions, and that opens up all the use cases that require or would benefit from decentralized storage. So we make our blockchain very flexible and very plug and play for tools that we build out internally, but also tools that are provided by our partners.
And for any non-techies listening out there and people in the world of business, do you have any use cases that you could possibly share that would just help them understand how it would work in their world and also get the most value from it?
Yeah, for sure. So one example I really like going over that I think is really impactful is in the medical industry. And what we see in the medical industry are very fragmented silos of data, right? And also lack of ownership of the data, right? So like your hospital gives you x-rays, and then they own your x-rays. So if you want to have a copy of your x-rays, you have to ask your hospital, call your hospital. That's an issue. And yeah, there's regulatory issues, right? Like hospitals want that honeypot of data because they make money off of it, right? So it's not as easy as just saying, oh, okay, you make a service where you get the x-ray and then you keep a hold of your own x-ray. Hospitals are never going to switch to that because they make money off of holding your x-rays. So what you can do instead is create a system where, you get the x-ray and you co-own the x-ray with your hospital. So anytime the hospital makes money off of the x-ray, you also make money off of the x-ray. And this is done based off of the, doing it on a blockchain ecosystem, doing an ontology. You could have an ONT ID with your medical records on it, stored locally. So, you keep control of all your data. If you switch providers, you switch health providers, that data goes with you. So you can take it right away. It's super easy. If the hospital needs to have some kind of co-ownership model, because a lot of times, they want that because they're the ones that are like doing the readings and taking the measurements, you can change the system so that it does it that way, right? So that it's co-owned by both of you. So at least it's one step better than the previous model where it's just entirely owned by the hospital, and it expands out. So say you wanted to expand to prescriptions, right? When a doctor gives you a prescriptions notice, they're still signing on a piece of paper, like the name of, this doctor's signature. And then you take that piece of paper to the pharmacist and you show it to them. And there's such a huge problem with forgery and with fraud. If instead this was all done on a blockchain, you could have cryptographically secure prescriptions being issued out to you. And then you go and you take that to the pharmacist, right? And then from the pharmacy, you're able to then get that prescription. This would all be handled with your ONT ID, which would all be on your phone. You could get that prescription. The doctor would sign it with their private key, and you would get that prescription. You go take it to the pharmacy, you get the prescription from the pharmacist. So you create the entire ecosystem, and meanwhile, during the entire ecosystem, you control your own data the entire time. And because everyone who's transacting in this ecosystem is using private keys, then everything is secured cryptographically. So you're not relying on like paperwork, right? All the paperwork is digitized and all the paperwork is signed with cryptography to keep everything super secure and minimize the chances for hacks.
And in the current climate, it feels like just about every business in every industry is struggling a little bit at the moment. So I've got to ask, how challenging are you finding it to keep increasing your partnership, keep your community happy, and keep driving forward? Because achieving that balance must be so difficult right now.
Yeah, I think that it's interesting because as a blockchain company, you kind of have all the issues of a startup, of an investment firm, and as a public company at the same time. So as a startup, because you're building out your product, right, and you're trying to get adoption for your product and find a use case and get the customers. As an investment firm, because, well, I guess maybe like as a platform company, because if what we're making and what a lot of blockchain companies are making is we're making platforms, right? So the idea is that other people can build on top of it. And when you have other people that build on top of it, that means that you have an ecosystem that you have to nurture. And so you have all these apps that are trying to build on top of you, and you have to nurture them and help them grow. And that's either through development support or through grants, right? So we have those issues we have to think about. Then we also have, as a public company, we're not a public company, but we have a token that people can buy and sell, right? Our utility token, ONT, that's like out there that people can buy and start using right away. So, if a lot of people buy it and the price goes down, then people start getting mad. And, for us, like we're not that concerned about the price because we're focused on what we're building or we're focused on the partnerships that we're making. But we always do have to keep an eye on it because the community, that's the community buys it and sells it, and it going up or down could have an effect on how happy the community is with what we're doing. So we try to focus on our partnerships and our development because that kind of helps solve like all three issues. The more partnerships that we make, the more use cases that get built out and the more things that get built on the platform, and all of it eventually translates into a healthier token ecosystem. So we are able to focus and we are able to put all of our energy towards building and development, and that kind of takes care of what we, it takes care of all three areas, because if we focus on building and we build a better product, then we get better partners, and then the better partners, there's more trust in Ontology, so it's a feedback loop, which helps us get more partners, helps us get more people wanting to build on Ontology, which creates more use cases on Ontology that actually get built out, which all of that translates into, the network activity going up, translates into the number of holders going up. It just kind of is a positive feedback loop.
Yeah, it must be such a difficult balance to get as well, especially because the community are almost demanding those partnerships and those regular updates, but you could be in deep conversation or securing partnerships, but obviously you're going to be locked down to NDAs at the same time, aren't you? Yeah,
right. So there's a lot of stuff in the pipeline that, we can't always talk about, and because you have those timelines.
And in other news, I've also read that Ontology is collaborating with the storage network Filecoin to provide storage service to its users as well. So they've got some great positive news there. For anyone that's not seen that, can you expand on that news?
Yeah, for sure. So we are building out a technical integration with Filecoin and with IPFS. So the idea is it's a decentralized storage solution. And the idea is that from your phone, you'd be able to use your ONT ID to be able to plug into the Filecoin network, which means that you could store decentralized files. Just kind of like, what that means is that the way Filecoin works is you as a node, anyone that has extra hard drive space on their own personal device can choose to rent it out. Say you have like a terabyte extra or like a couple gigabytes extra, you can rent it out to this network. And then on the other side, you have people that are looking for extra storage space, and instead of using Dropbox or instead of using like Amazon or whatever it is that they use, they store their files with Filecoin, and Filecoin breaks up the file and stores it on the individual computers that people are renting out. So if, maybe it's like if you have a 1 terabyte file you need to store, maybe it's like 1 gigabyte on this one person's computer, 1 gigabyte on that person's computer, half a megabyte on that person's computer. It just kind of splinters it out until it all fills up. And obviously every file is encrypted, so even though it's on their device, like it doesn't get exposed, and there's a level of redundancy. So like if some of them just stop responding, or if some of the devices go offline, you have copies of it, so it doesn't get your files don't get lost. So essentially you create like a virtual server that is really made up of all of these decentralized contributors that are all contributing their individual hard drive space to kind of create this virtual space where you can go in and store however many files you want. And so where we come in and how we're plugging into that is we're letting you essentially log into that network using your ONT ID. So you don't need to go and create a separate account to use it, or to go and set up like an access point, or download the Filecoin wallet or whatever to go and access that network. You can access it right from your ONT ID, right from your phone, where you access with the same, it's the Onto app, right? So it's the same app that you use to manage your coins. It's the same app that you use to manage your identity, which opens up all the use cases for ONT ID. And now you'll also be able to manage your files as well. So it just adds to the amount of services that we're able to provide from the same app.
Fantastic. And for anyone listening that is playing blockchain podcast bingo out there, we've ticked off partnerships, bear market. I think we mentioned Moon at some point. So it wouldn't be right if we didn't mention the word roadmap too. So I appreciate you probably can't share too much, but is there anything on your roadmap or any teasers you can leave with us today about what's next for Ontology?
Yeah, we're making vast improvements to ONT ID. We're doing more the more templates for more kinds of claims that people can issue out, also more ways to use those claims and to utilize those claims, specifically with what we call the decentralized data exchange framework. That's DDXF. The idea behind that is, okay, you have all of this identification about you. You should be able to monetize that. So if you have, say, academic credentials that were issued out by your university, if you have a service where, say, someone wants to do surveys and someone wants to, they want to know from everyone who went to MIT, or say everyone who's over 30, or everyone who lives in Venezuela, they want to know some things, right? You should do a survey, just like you would do a survey, and you want to pay to the people who take the survey. That's how a lot of surveys get people to submit their information, or to take the survey. So through ONT ID, right, through the Onto app, if you're collecting these credentials, right, you get the credential from your school, you get the credential from where you live, you can start participating in these surveys, and then you can start earning money from these surveys. Right? And that's just like one example of what's possible with the data exchange framework, with the DDXF. We're working on a lot of use cases, building stuff out there. We have a lot of partners for online work and remote work. So we're really trying to give people opportunities to make extra income and to find work online. Especially now, right? Like during this time where I think there's a big global shift to online work. And even after things kind of return to normal, I still predict that a lot of people are going to continue to try to work online and try to work remotely, because if something like this happens again, they don't want to be caught off guard and be caught unemployed because their work was location dependent. So that's something very specific that we're doing. Other things on our roadmap, right? We're working on cross-chain solutions where we can plug into other blockchains trustlessly, right? The precursor to that is on the Onto app. You can hold not just Ontology, the Onto wallet, right? It's not only ONT and ONT-based tokens that you can hold, but it also acts as an Ethereum wallet. So you can hold your ETH and hold any of your Ethereum tokens, hold any of your Ethereum non-fungible tokens, and you can tap into any Ethereum dApps. So any of the DeFi dApps you can access right from the Onto wallet. We also just added support for Bitcoin, so you can access your Bitcoin and trade your Bitcoin, do whatever you need to do with your Bitcoin right from the Onto wallet as well. And we're going to be adding support for a lot more tokens on the Onto wallet as well. We're also working on a payment solution called Numina. And so we're working more on fiat on-ramp. So being able to trade your fiat directly into ONT, and even using a crypto debit card to be able to then spend that ONT or spend the crypto at physical merchants, and participating retailers. So we're working a lot of stuff that's all geared towards the end user and all geared towards giving people the ability to quickly get a hold of ONT and also to quickly use it and spend it.
Incredibly cool. And for anyone that would like to find out more information, join your community, or even contact a member of your team, can you just point them in the best direction to do that?
Yeah, it's very simple. It's ont.io. That's our website. And if you go to our website, you can just, if you're a community member, there are all the Telegram links for you to join the community. If you're a technical person, there's all of the developer resources there for you. If you're just, if you're a company, there's all the links there for enterprises and how to get started or how to reach out. So it's a one-stop shop for like any kind of person who wants to get more involved in whatever way. That ont.io is the best place to go, and just follow the links.
Excellent. Well, I'll get all those links added to the blog post that will accompany this episode. But I appreciate how busy you are, and it is quite early in New York where you've took this call this morning. But I've loved chatting with you, and also just hearing about the Ontology story so far, and more importantly, the plans for the future. But more than anything, just a big thank you for joining me today, Eric. Much appreciated.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So a big thank you to Eric for coming on the podcast there, for, yes, sharing the story so far, the plans for the future, but why the Ontology platform is the platform of choice for businesses and enterprises around the world, and why its bespoke technology could be an industry game changer for developers, enterprises and end users. Yes, it's early days, but I love the work they're doing here in getting these partnerships, increasing adoption, because that is the key to it all. So on this podcast, I will give my opinions, the guest will give theirs, but then I'm very passionate about getting you guys to share your opinions, thoughts, insights, and anything that you think we missed from today's conversation. Let me know, and we can feature you on here too. So please email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com. My website is techblogwriter.co.uk. If you need anything at all, let me know. But I'll be back tomorrow with another great guest from another industry talking about how technology is transforming their world, their business, or their life, whatever it is. We'll have somebody lined up. You'll find out more tomorrow. So a big thank you for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.